Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemaier Games. Welcome to my weekly live cast. Again, I'm using the new Facebook live recording system. It's a little weird. There's a little bit of a delay at the beginning. I can't really tell exactly where it starts. I'm curious, actually. Let me know in the comments. Are the first few seconds of this video me saying, "Hey, this is Jamie Stegmaier," or is it like me in the middle of a sentence? I'm curious about that. But yeah, thank you for joining me today or in the future if you're watching this not live. Today's chocolate of the day is one of the many chocolates we recently ordered from Universal Yums. Megan and I subscribe to this international treat box subscription service, and every month we get a box of treats from another country. And we liked some of them so much that we rebought from Universal Yums a number of them, and one of them was this candy bar, Choco Monk Roasted Almonds limited winter edition. This must have been a winter treat for Universal Yums. This is really good, really good. We got a bunch of them. There's also these truffles, these chocolate truffles that I cannot get enough of, that I need to stop eating because they are like the most unhealthy of the bunch. This isn't too bad. It's still pretty bad. Yeah, lots of saturated fat in these things, but they're delicious. What's your chocolate of the day today, or your treat of the day? Looks like Carol confirmed that the first few seconds of the video were the beginning. So it looks like it does start recording right away, even though it doesn't quite look like it. So I have a bunch of random topics to cover today. I do want to start off with a quick shout out to My Little Scythe Pie in the Sky, the new expansion for My Little Scythe, the first and only expansion for My Little Scythe. Hobie, Morton, and I have been posting pretty much daily design diary post in the My Little Scythe Facebook group. So if you're curious about the design process or the types of things that we thought about when putting this game together, feel free to check that out. And tomorrow will be the rulebook reveal. So we'll be revealing the full rulebook to this game. The pre-order will go live on our website on April 29th, and the retail release is usually around 7 to 8 weeks later. But yeah, you'll be able to get it, this and the core game. If you don't have the core game and you want to give it a try, we'll offer both for a discount. I think maybe a bundle discount. I'm not exactly sure how I'll do it, but we'll offer that on April 29th. And if you're curious about our fulfillment center right now, like if you plan on ordering this and you're wondering how soon will it actually ship, our fulfillment center in St. Louis is doing pretty well. They're shipping. They have a certain goal every day of the number of packages that they aim to ship, and they're usually meeting that goal. We do have more orders than they can ship every day. They're kind of constantly catching up. But right now they're running a rate of about, if you place an order today, it'll probably ship in about 5 to 7 business days. And eventually I think they'll get ahead of the pace, but they're doing their best. At the same time, our fulfillment centers in Australia and Canada and the United Kingdom for Europe are doing great too. I think they're all limited by their capacity. They're all following pretty strict social distancing and cleanliness guidelines for this time of the pandemic. But they're doing a good job still shipping things out and keeping people entertained during this time when a lot of us are stuck at home. Looking over at the comments here, Sarah says that hope all is well in St. Louis, her old stomping ground. Always great to hear from someone from St. Louis. I'm actually not from St. Louis, but I've been here for more than half of my life at this point. And I'm in St. Louis right now, and I've been based here since 1999. So quite some time, quite a long time. Arthur says that the video quality is a little low. Let me see why that is. I wonder if that's a setting that I can change. I don't know. Let's see. Is the video quality low for everybody? It's hard for me to exactly tell from my footage because I'm seeing my HD camera right now in real time, but I don't know quite what you were seeing. But let me know if the video quality is really low. I'll poke around. Probably not now because I don't see it clearly. I don't think it's intentionally set at any low quality setting. But thank you for letting me know. Heath is joining us from Cape Fear Games, one of our longtime retail partners. Good to hear from you, Heath. Alan says, where were you from before St. Louis? I grew up in Virginia. So I grew up in Virginia my entire life. I was in Virginia my entire life, and then I moved out to St. Louis to go to Washington University here in St. Louis. A few people are saying that the quality is the highest they're seeing is 360 pixels. It's probably just an internet thing in general with people, a lot of people using the internet right now, because I don't think it will default to a lower setting. Yeah, but thank you for letting me know. I'll keep an eye on that. I had a very interesting, actually, we're talking about live stuff. I had a very interesting live chat on Instagram yesterday with a board game cafe and content producer in Iran. We recently had a little bit of a not a little bit of an issue, but basically a couple of days ago, someone alerted me that a company in Iran is counterfeiting one of our games. They've announced that they are printing Wingspan, and we have not licensed Wingspan to anybody in Iran. So this was huge news to me. And it was kind of this flurry of activity. I reached out on the Instagram page for this company, which was talking nonstop about Wingspan. The company is called Hezarto. And I told them that they were stealing our intellectual property, that that this was a counterfeit copy of the game, that people shouldn't support it. And the company reached out to me and basically said that they had tried to contact me and didn't hear back from me. And because they didn't hear back from me, they thought, we'll just steal it. And which is a ridiculous reason to steal something, right? But at the same time, I was also curious because I usually reply to everybody. So I dug a little bit deeper. I asked them to send me the contact that they tried to make with me. And apparently they just sent it to the wrong email. They sent it to an email address that doesn't exist. And after not getting a reply to an incorrect email, they thought, we'll just print this game anyway. So it was this whole thing, and it ended up being this very interesting interview. So I kind of tried to listen to the consumer response in Iran was very interesting because a lot of people were saying, we are frustrated by the sanctions between the U.S. and Iran, and we'd love to have more games in our country, but it's very difficult to get them. It's difficult to have arrangements with foreign publishers to pay them, things like that. And so after listening to all that, I had this very interesting live chat on Instagram yesterday with a company where I talked about what had happened and the fact that I would love to work officially with a company in Iran, just as I would love to work with any company anywhere, because I think games are kind of a global language. We have differences between different countries in terms of our histories and whatnot, but I'm just a gamer and a producer, a game publisher, and I want to bring our games to people worldwide. So we had a great chat about it, and the resolution right now is that we are going to find another company to work with in Iran to officially publish Wingspan and have it produced in Iran. That's one of the big issues. They have a lot of difficulty apparently importing games from places like China where we produce them, but they can produce them internally in Iran. And I think we'll be taking some sort of legal action as best that we can, probably in partnership with our new our real publishing partner in Iran, whoever that ends up being, against this company that is counterfeiting our games. But it was this whole thing. I've given you a quick summary here, but it was a first for me. I don't think I've seen any of our games counterfeited in that way, and I've never heard someone use the excuse, "Well, we didn't hear from you," and thought so. It's justified that we can just take your intellectual property. Never heard that, and it was surprising to me to hear kind of some of the consumers in Iran echoed that response. So they were like, well, this is the best we can get. So this is what we'll take. And so I was hoping to smooth that over by saying that I really do want to work with someone officially in Iran. Anyway, I can answer questions about this if you have any. That's the quick summary. Matt says, how do you go about the process of determining print run for an expansion? Do you determine based on percentage of the original game's print run, or are there other factors that go into that? Yeah, part of it is a percentage. Some of our most popular games typically sell around 30 to 40%. Like the expansion will sell 30 to 40% of the games in circulation. But it also, we kind of look at how many people are actively playing this game. Has it achieved kind of evergreen status in terms of sales and what people are actually playing? What is the social media response to this game? Are we seeing a lot of activity in the corresponding Facebook group, things like that? So it's a lot of hard data that I take in and kind of make a soft guess as to how many I think that will sell in the first print run. I also get estimates from my focus group of retailers and distributors to see how many they think they want in the first print run. Chris says, can I see somewhere what will be in the pie in the sky box? Yeah, it's actually all on our website now. So if you go to the pie in the sky listing on our website, you can see what's in the box there. And you'll also see that full component list in the rules that I will reveal tomorrow. Alex says, what's the biggest news for Stonemaier Games now? Well, that was probably the Iran thing that I just talked about. That was a big deal. And actually, this segues into a few different things. Tomorrow, my blog post, I will probably be talking about either that, the counterfeit, or another ongoing scam and fraud related to Stonemaier Games that I want people to know about so they can avoid it as well. And segue beyond a little bit into that, one of the videos I want to do in the near future is about games with controversial subjects, games that deal with controversial subjects well, and some games that maybe don't deal with those subjects well. I'm talking about, and not just controversial, sometimes just ethically bad and immoral subjects like slavery, but also some subjects that are a little bit more nuanced, I don't know, some of the examples that I want to explore in the post, maybe not even nuance is the right word, but I want to explore colonialism, diversity, games like Secret Hitler that use, I don't know if Secret Hitler is inherently controversial, but it could be. Underground Railroad is a game that talks about slavery in a way that I think is respectful to the subject, doesn't glorify it. Religion can be very controversial, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments here of games that that you have thoughts about that have controversial subjects or themes, even mechanisms, and if you thought those games dealt with them well or didn't deal with them well. I'm going to do a video about this very soon, so this will be helpful to hear your thoughts on that subject. Just scrolling through, looking at comments right here. Chris says, what is one game that you love that you feel scales well with larger audiences? Like larger player counts, I'm guessing you're saying, Chris? I think that's what you're saying. Not like broad audiences, like gateway games. I mean, I'll mention one of our games. I don't always do this, but I think Between Two Castles and Between Two Cities scale extremely well. They're drafting games where you are with two players on your left and your right, and I think they scale really well up to 7 players. And they play in the same amount of time with 7 players as they do with fewer player counts. So that's one that I should probably give a shout out to here. Mark says, is Walter joining us today? Walter is actually, he's just off camera. He's down near his food right now. He wants me to open his food. Sorry, bud. Biddy is the one sleeping in the chair behind me. Matthias says, well, the new Tapestry expansion, I'm going to stop you right there, Matthias. I'm not revealing what's in the new Tapestry expansion yet. Right now, we're just focusing on the My Little Scythe Pie in the Sky expansion that we're really excited about. And much later this year, we'll talk in detail about what the Tapestry expansion is. But I appreciate your curiosity about that. Matt has a long comment here. Let me jump over before I get to that, Matt. Let me see if there's any topics that I should cover right now about Stonemaier games in particular. We did our first Tabletopia playtest for an expansion that we're working on just the other day. We figured out a way, or I'm working with a friend named Henry who is working on this. He is implementing a few of our prototype expansions into Tabletopia so that we can playtest them privately and locally. Because we can't do that in person. This isn't a way that we normally play test, but we're trying it right now. And Tabletopia has a really good system for that. So it worked out well. And we'll be doing it again tomorrow and for several other games in the upcoming weeks. That was the other, I think, main Stonemaier games. The main things are the counterfeit, the Tabletopia playtesting, and the My Little Scythe Pie in the Sky expansion, the rules of which will be revealed tomorrow. Some other fun topics to cover, but I'll jump over to questions real quick and come back to those topics. Okay, Matt has a long comment. He says, I was reading the latest Oath Designer Diary by Cole Warely, and Matt was intrigued by all the changes that have been made since the Kickstarter ended. As a backer through my friendly local game store, my first instinct was to be concerned as the game is now somewhat different than what I backed. However, I'm encouraged that they are continuing to make the best design. What do you think is the right balance between presenting a completed game via Kickstarter and continuing to engage in major development changes after funding? So a few schools of thought here. My main and primary school of thought is a game or product should be 98% ready to go to print when you begin the Kickstarter campaign, with a 2% left intentionally open for things like stretch goals and backer generated ideas and enhancements that you didn't even think of. I think that's one of the great things about Kickstarter. But I think there's so much uncertainty that you open up in terms of things like this, like changes that impact that changed the game into something that it wasn't when people backed it, or even just scheduling, uncertainty around scheduling. If you do not go into a campaign with a nearly finished game. I do understand that people have different budgets, creators have different budgets, and so sometimes a game might go into the campaign needing a lot of artwork, and that might definitely impact the uncertainty of the schedule that follows. But I would be concerned too if a designer, I think Cole is very talented. I don't want to criticize Cole. He's done some amazing things with his games. But I would not enter a Kickstarter with a product that is not almost finished, just because of the uncertainty that it opens up in terms of what follows. I'm sure you've seen games like that. Even one of our partners, Greater Than Games, they have a game that I backed that I was and am really excited about. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. Something Hollows, Sleepy Hollow, the Sleepy Hollow game. And they didn't finish it before the campaign, and then they realized that it needed a lot of work. And now it's taking quite some time. I trust that they're doing a great job. I love when developers take the time to get it right, but I would prefer for them to do that before the campaign starts. And I think that is a better way to gain and maintain backer trust. That's my personal opinion. David says, if you ever need a group of playtesters at a college in Indiana, let me know. Thank you, David. I really appreciate that. If you want to sign up as a playtester, the first step to get started is to sign up as a Stonemaier ambassador on our website. And we have a test that we give ambassadors usually around once a year to determine who will actually make really good playtesters. And so if you are signed up as an ambassador, you will get that test when we send it out once a year. Stephen says, if expansions at best make 30 to 40% of base game sales, at what point does it make financial sense to invest in an expansion? For huge sellers like Scythe and Wingspan, it must make sense, but other games? Even selling like 5,000 copies of an expansion can be worth the expense. And it's not just about like the direct revenue generated by the expansion, but oftentimes by creating an expansion and getting it out there to people and giving people a reason to get a game back to the table, you are generating more core game sales as well. In addition, it's a great service, I think, to the fans who love the game. I think there is a limit. I think having an ongoing stream of expansions can be almost disrespectful to fans. But within a nice limit, there's a sweet spot where you are appreciating your fans for loving the game. You're saying, this is how we're supporting the game. This is one of the ways that we're supporting the longevity of the game by producing more content for it. So even if you sell a few thousand copies, it can still be profitable, and you are serving the game and the game's existing community in various ways. That's how I see it. George says, will Tapestry have a future digital release? I should check on that. We do have a digital partner for it, but I have not heard back from them in a while. So I'm going to send them a little update. Thank you for the reminder to do that. Yeah. Yeah, so it will. I just don't, I definitely don't think it'll be this year. Potentially next year. Joshua says, what is my favorite pie in the sky airship ability? I don't know if I quite have a favorite yet, but I love, there's one portal ability where you get to like create your own portal, which is pretty cool. I like that it's an actual token that you're dropping on the map, and it lets you jump across the map. I think that's pretty cool. Probably one of my favorite ones so far. Archer says, I've seen you're currently closed for game submissions. Is this due to confinement? Any expected date for reopening? No, we actually closed submissions a few months before coronavirus spread throughout the world. The main reason for it is that we kind of have a backlog of projects right now, and we don't want to print more than one or two new games a year. We really want to stay focused and nimble in that way. And so we kind of had a backlog where we're kind of booked for the next 2 or 3 years. We don't want to miss out on anything huge, and so we probably will open it for maybe a review process in a few months, because people can still fill out the form, and we'll step in every now and then and review it and see if there's something really special there. But currently, so much of my time is spent on games that are already in development and expansions that are already in development that uh, and we're already booked through so many years that we needed to close it for a little while. But we will reopen it, and as I said, you're still welcome to fill out the submission form and share your game with us. Alex says, how does coronavirus affect board games coming to Kickstarter? That's a great question, Alex. I actually have a full article about that recently. I don't know if anyone can post it there, but I have an article recently about is now a good time to on Kickstarter, and it goes into many details that answer that question. You'll get the best answer if you read that article rather than me trying to rehash it right now off the top of my head. Julian mentioned something interesting. So Wolfenstein doesn't deliver to Germany, and I believe in France. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that anyone from France is here? I think in France you are not allowed to show weapons on the product boxes. Is that correct? Let me know if that's correct. I don't know if that's entirely correct because I think there is. I think we might have game boxes like in Scythe that kind of have weapons on the front, and those mechs are giant weapons. So let me know if there is a regulation there in France. This is in reference to a question that I asked earlier about controversial subjects in games. And I like that Julian's pointing out that controversial might be different depending on where you live, your religious beliefs, things like that, your various beliefs. So that's a great point. The perspective matters for what is actually controversial. Roshni says, what's my favorite solo game? I'd love to have an answer for that, but I actually don't play games solo. I don't have anything against it, but I just much prefer to play with people. I do play games every now and then, digital ports of tabletop games against the AI. That's the closest I get to solo, though. Steve says he and his family finally played Between Two Cities last night, and they're going to give Between Two Castles a try as well. That's great to hear, Steve. Leandro says, do I think that Scythe works well for two players? Yeah, absolutely. I'm the most biased person to ask about that, but a lot of our playtesting for Scythe was specifically for two players. In fact, I kind of think it thrives at two players for a specific reason, in that in a crowded game of Scythe, you don't have a lot of choice about whether or not you're going to interact with the other players. But in a two-player game, you do. You can use the tunnels to easily jump across the board and get to the other player if you want to have a game that's full of conflict. But if you don't want that, there's also plenty of room to spread out and just kind of build your own engine, and your opponent can build their own engine. Whoever has the better engine is going to win the game. And so I like that in two players and three players that you have space to really make that choice, whereas at higher player counts, and one of the reasons I was really hesitant about 6 or 7 player counts, you have less of a choice as to whether or not you want to interact with your opponents. Attila says, are there any plans to extend the Between Two line of games? Probably not, no. I think it's likely that we will have another expansion for Between Two Castles. But the Between Two Castles has not sold nearly as well as we thought and as we hoped. There are many different reasons that could be, but one of the reasons could be that maybe people thought, okay, there's already a Between Two game. We don't need another one. So that possibility has made me very hesitant to pursue another game with that same mechanism. Danielle says, what's a digital game that you've played since being stuck inside that you would recommend? That's a great question. Actually, I just did a video on Sunday about my favorite digital versions of tabletop games that I think might even be better experiences than the tabletop versions, many of which I really like. And near the top of that list were games like, what was at the top of the list? I'll let you watch the video and find out what's at the top of the list. But some games that I've been playing recently were the Lord of the Rings LCG digital version, Shards of Infinity digital version, really loving that. I played Slay the Spire a couple days ago, really enjoyed that. Great game. That's not a digital port, that's a digital only game. Those were the main ones I think that I've been playing recently. Yeah. Would recommend all three of those. Carol says, "How is Rolling Realms going?" Yeah, um, sorry, I saw a comment that I thought I missed, but if I do miss a comment, feel free to repeat it. Rolling Realms is going well. I have version 9 ready, and I'm kind of just deciding when I want to play it with when I do want to do the teach and play. I'm fairly busy, and but I still want. I created this so that I could play along with people and give people something fun to do at home in these tough times. So I don't know exactly when I'm going to play it, but version 9 is ready. It just isn't posted yet, and I'll post it when I decide when the next teach and play will be. Heath says, "Have I ever considered designing a party game?" I'd love the challenge of designing a party game as a designer, and I did try once, but it didn't work out all that well, and it doesn't fit all that well into the Stonemaier games model, and so I have not pursued that for quite some time. But I would love to do it. I think it's an interesting design challenge to try to do that. I see a lot of questions here, but let me jump over. I'll do some quick topics real quick. Forgotten Waters is a game that I just played very recently. Megan and I played the first scenario over the weekend. You've probably heard about this game. It's a brand new game from Plaid Hat Games. Really, really great. We had a great experience with the first scenario, and it inspired a video that I'm doing this weekend about my favorite games that require apps. And I talk in detail about, I do a top 10 list, and I talk in detail about why Stonemaier Games hasn't and probably won't make a game that requires an app. What else is going on? Last week at game night, we played Just One. We're doing remote game nights over Zoom. We did Just One and Cartographers using a Google Doc version of Cartographers. And tonight we're going to play Codenames and Scotland Yard. We'll give those a try and see how they go. Recent blog posts I did a blog post on Monday about Easter eggs in games. And if you're ever interested in seeing all the appearances of my two cats in all of our games, in which they appear, you can find that blog post on stonemeiergames.com that has photos of all the different like little Easter eggs of the cats. And I'm curious what you think about Easter eggs. Do you like trying to find Easter eggs in games? Do you like when the designers put in like little references to their other games or to their cats or their location or things like that? I really enjoy that. I'm curious what other people think as well. I think that's pretty much it. I did a video recently about 5 tribes, and Megan has been playing The Witness, a digital game. I haven't been playing it, but I've kind of been watching every now and then. And The Witness is a really, really cool digital puzzle game. I've been really impressed by what I've seen her play in that game. Those are all my topics that I wanted to cover today. Feel free to ask me questions about them or discuss them, share your thoughts, things like that. But I will jump over and answer questions now. Chad says, "How do I balance repeated plays versus playing new games?" Chad says his wife burns out, and we haven't played Scythe since finishing the Fenris campaign or Clank since finishing Clank Legacy. I'm kind of the same way. After I play a repeated version of a game, I tend to take a break from it for a while. I absolutely love Clank. It's one of my favorite games. And Clank Legacy elevated it even higher. But because we played Clank quite a bit while playing Clank Legacy, I need to give the game a break a little while and come back to it. Doesn't diminish how much I love the game. Just means I want to play it for a little while. So, and that's just how I am with the games. And like you said, I think it's just human nature. If you play something a lot, you might want a little variety. Another reason that I think expansions are great for games. People might play Wingspan. I hear of people who play like Wingspan only for like weeks and weeks. They play Wingspan over and over again, and they probably need a break from it because they played the same game for a while. They might have to decide, and then an expansion comes out, and they're excited to play it again and get a fresh new take on it. Yeah. Stephen has a question about, he says, "I see there's a lot of different online versions for these games like Viticulture and Wingspan. I don't see what your question is. Stephen, are you asking like which one should you purchase of these games? So it depends on what you want. For a few of our games, we have full AI versions of them. Scythe, Between Two Castles, and most recently Charterstone. We have full AI versions of them developed by very talented developers who are that's what they do. They put those games together with full AI. There's also physics-driven games that have no AI. The games just know what the objects are, but they don't know what the objects do. They don't know what the cards mean in the game. And that's what you see on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator. So if you already know how to play a game and you just want to play it with other people who already know how to play the game, I think Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator are great. But if you want to play games quickly, or if you want to learn a game, I think the AI version is the way to go. I prefer the full AI versions personally when I play digital versions of games. Steven says, are there paid online versions that you benefit from more than others? We get royalties for all of our digital games from the developers who publish them. So I wouldn't say one is inherently better than the other. Our royalties are probably the best for the full AI digital versions. They require the biggest investment, but don't let that limit you based on the games that you want to play and the format that you want to play them. Walter he's off camera here, but he's sitting right behind me. Here, I'll try to tilt the camera so you can see him. There's Walter down there. I'll leave him on camera so we can see how long Walter lasts down there. I'll try to crouch down so you can actually see me too. He is waiting for me to open his food. Why don't I do it? I'll open his food here. Yeah, here we go, bud. All right. Let me tilt that back a little bit. We'll watch Walter eat. Okay, Matthias says, what mechanisms do you think are inherent to board gaming and separates them from other media? For example, I've not found a similar experience to the hidden trader mechanic in Dead of Winter. I have seen it elsewhere. Like it's in one of the Jackbox games. Jackbox is kind of a digital party game platform, and they have a game called Push the Button that has a trader mechanism. I don't know if there are, like, especially between digital games and tabletop games, there's a ton of overlap in mechanisms. I would be a little hard pressed, other than maybe dexterity mechanisms are pretty hard for digital games to emulate, even though VR is kind of making that more and more possible. So I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to think of a mechanism that can't work in both formats. But feel free to mention one in the comments. That's a great question. Matt says, when designing a game, do you think that theme is required to excite the board game community? He says, I'm working on a basketball dexterity game that is pretty basic. It's a basketball simulator, but I think I might need to add orcs or elves to make it viable within the community. And just to let you know, Facebook just jumped way ahead on comments. So I might miss some comments right around what Matt just said. If I do, feel free to repeat them. I'll definitely answer them. So there's a football themed game from Fantasy Flight called Blood Bowl, where they kind of did that. They took a football-like sport and they brought in the fantasy theme, and I think it probably did much better than if it was just a football theme. Sports themes, in fact, watch my YouTube video about sports themes in games and why I discuss about why they don't seem to work all that well. Sports are a tough theme. So I think you might need to add some other angle to it, not necessarily fantasy, but some other angle to it to pique the interest of board gamers. At the same time, there are games like Wingspan. I wondered if hobby gamers were going to receive Wingspan well. And at one point I even asked the designer, should we make these birds, should we put them in a fantasy world and have little creatures flying around on the birds and things like that? And the designer said no, and she made the right choice, because you can see what Wingspan has done since then. And so it is not always the right answer to bring in those fantasy sci-fi themes into a game. I know that I just missed a bunch of questions. Facebook is kind of skipping forward, so I'll try to catch up real quick here. Carol says, what are my feelings on Frosthaven? Did the building the town mechanism and other new aspects draw you in enough to back? I love what Isaac's done. I love that he's expanding the world of Gloomhaven. The only version of Gloomhaven I want to play is one that gets rid of the tactical combat. And I know that's such a core part of the game. I know this is a ridiculous thing to say, but I don't enjoy that. But I don't enjoy tactical combat in games. That's not fun for me. What I enjoy is the world building, the stories, the interesting choices that you make outside of combat. The town building in Frosthaven looks awesome. The crafting, I love the idea of that. But I would need to find a version of Frosthaven that is not so combat focused for me to give that a try. For me, especially for me to pay for it. Adrian says he read a post on Reddit about Scythe that he thought was interesting. A player got sent back to their home base after losing a battle and using all their power. Another player then moved into their starting hex, essentially making it difficult for them to re-enter the board. They had to wait 10 plus rounds to accumulate enough power to re-enter the board, and then by then the game was over. Thoughts on this? It is an edge case. I have heard that happening too. I think players kind of put themselves in that position when it happens, so it's kind of your own fault a little bit. But it's also like, what type of a friend that you're playing with is going to trap you in your home base when you're playing a board game? That's the type of person I don't want to play with again. So I feel bad for that player that happened to them, but I think there are a couple factors in there that maybe means that a couple different people need to make better decisions in that scenario. Cody says, how important or unimportant is search engine optimization for a board game publisher? I would say fairly important. Yeah. People need to be able to find your website and find your product, find your base. Rachel says, I can tell you in Germany, they badly damaged our Scythe Legendary box and customs import. I don't know if it had anything to do with the outside artwork or how heavy the shipping box was with all the Scythe game expansions inside or metal coins sitting off the detector. That's interesting, Rachel. I'm assuming you're talking about that you maybe moved to Germany and imported your game, because when we sell the Legendary box, it doesn't include anything inside the box. But I'm sorry to hear about that. That sucks. Steven he's mentioned a controversial game called Machuku. Japanese word that I have not seen before. It's set in World War II when Japan set up a military state in Manchuria. The history of this period is pretty brutal. That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that game, so thank you for mentioning that one, Steven. Brian says, sorry if you already said it, is version 9 for Rolling Realms coming? Yes, I have it ready. I'm kind of deciding when I want to do the teach and play. Brian says, how is Wingspan Oceania going? It's going well. The design process for the next Wingspan expansion is going well. Thank you for asking. Blake says, what are my thoughts on Kickstarter these days? For those not selling direct, it almost seems that it is the way to go. It seems that Kickstarter creators are scared to launch. But those that tend to are doing well. Yeah, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier. There is an article I wrote about whether now is a good or a bad time for creators to launch on Kickstarter. I prefer not to use Kickstarter these days. I'd rather just make something and sell it to people, like we're doing with the Pie in the Sky expansion for My Little Scythe. But I know that many creators need it or feel like they need it, and that's completely fine too. It's a great platform. Brian says, have I tried Marvel Champions? I have, yeah. I have a video about it that I posted maybe 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. I have tried it, yeah. It's a solid game. This is one that I probably will play repeated times, but I had fun playing as Iron Man. Yeah, it's solid. Amy says, did I miss chocolate of the day? You did, Amy. This is our chocolate of the day. It's I believe it's Austrian chocolate, and it's very good. Is it Austrian? Made in New Jersey. No, Universal distributed in New Jersey. I don't know where it's made. Rachel says, what's my highest and lowest score in Scythe? I've definitely had a very low scoring game in Scythe, maybe even in the teens, which is unfortunate. Many times when I play Scythe, I'm either teaching it or trying a weird strategy, and that can result in a very low score. My highest score is probably in the 80s or 90s. Fico says, is that a cat on the couch behind you? Yeah, that's actually a nice cushioned chair, and that is Biddy behind me on the couch there. Ephraim says, we have all your games except for Between Two Cities and Tapestry. We love all of them, but the one we least like is Between Two Castles. So I'm sorry to hear that. I love Between Two Castles. If you don't like Between Two Castles, Between Two Cities probably isn't going to do it for you, so I would go with Tapestry there. Blake says, speaking of Forgotten Waters, is it now available for purchase? I think they're still accepting orders on the website, but I don't really know. We don't make that game. It's a different company. Brian says, how did Forgotten Waters work with 2 players? It worked fine. We had to use an official variant that we downloaded. The designer presented it on Board Game Geek. We downloaded that, printed it, and played with that variant. And it worked pretty well. There was one little thing where whenever you would gain a skill, which happens frequently in the game, whenever you gain a skill, you have to spend a good, like a resource, in a 2-player game only. And that made certain things very difficult in the game. but it worked out. I think it was there for a reason. Just be aware of that. You're going to be spending a lot of goods, or you need to make choices not to gain certain skills so that you can keep the goods that you need to feed your crew, which you will need to do as you move around your ship. Eric says he would be very interested in a game that plays well quickly at 10 to 16 players. He would be more interested in that than a team-based group game. Another challenge? That would be very tough. It's tough to playtest a game that big. It's rare that I could get together a group of that many people. I don't know. I think that type of game maybe has a little bit of a limited appeal. Like, how often are you really playing a game with that many people? Probably just at conventions, right? I do have game nights that go over 10 players, but we rarely play a game that everyone is participating in. So I don't know. I don't know if that's worth a designer spending a lot of time on, honestly. Fun challenge. You say it as a challenge. It could be a fun challenge. Yeah. Tom says, where do you start when designing a game? I would start by playing a lot of games and looking at them from a design perspective. And then I would go to our website and go to the page called How to Design a Tabletop Game and read down that list and watch the videos down that list in order. And that'll tell you how to get started. Zach says, have I ever thought about designing a Survivor-themed game? I'm not quite sure how this would work without player elimination, but just wanted to see your thoughts on how it might work. I certainly have. I love Survivor. I'm really enjoying the current season. And it seems like a great theme for a party type game, a large group bluffing game. I would love to see, I think they're called pull the pin games now. They did have a different name before this, but I would love to see them design it because I know that they are fans of Survivor over there and they specialize in that style of game. So I'd love to see them develop it at some point. Mackenzie says, am I backing anything on Kickstarter right now that I am excited about? Let me see what I am backing right now that is still live. Or it's not live, that's in progress. Plenty of games I've backed that are in progress that I'm excited about. What have I backed recently? My backed projects. So I backed Board Game Kickstarter Advice. I backed Game Boy Geeks Season 8. I'm looking through here. All my recently backed projects are over. So I'm not currently backing any project that is live. Ephraim says, what is my routine or steps when learning a new game, especially the heavy ones? Well, honestly, a big part of it is now I have an employee at Stonemaier Games, Joe, coworker and employee Joe, who his job is to learn new games and teach them to me, which is great because I want to play a lot of games. I want to learn from other designers, but I don't always want to invest the time it takes to learn a game. So I do still learn games. Usually they're smaller, shorter, lighter games with small rule books. And I just read through the rule book and then I sit down and play it with someone who is okay with me fumbling through the rules a little bit and we play it. But usually the games are taught to me by other people, and that is fantastic, especially Joe. Joe's a great teacher. Getting through the Easter eggs question part of the comments here. Josh mentions on the top of Easter eggs, there's always the risk the artist releases a full image that spoils a future game announcement like Wingspan. That is true. Yeah, you kind of have to be selective about what artists release in advance of a game or even while a game is live, because with a full-size version, you might be able to see some stuff that the game designer maybe didn't want you to see in a very small like tile or card. Steven mentioned that there's a game called Knights Around or a YouTube channel called Knights Around a Table that has started a series called The Secret Life of Board Games. I think they actually contacted me about this, and I encouraged them to post in different Facebook groups to learn about the different Easter eggs in our games because there's so many, and there is no master list of them. And I didn't want to put it together for them. Chris says, may I ask, have you tried to do a Rise of Fenris campaign for My Little Scythe, the Rise of Pied Champs? I haven't done that, no. And I don't think Hobie has either, but that would be fun. I wonder if that's the type of thing that families would really enjoy. We do have it in My Little Scythe. I revealed just the other day that there is an achievement sheet. I don't think it's in this box, so I won't pull it out. But there's an achievement sheet now that isn't a campaign, but it does give you a little bit of a sense of progression from game to game in kind of a silly, fun way. No, it doesn't really impact gameplay. Josek says, what are those promo Wingspan cards that have your artwork on them? Oh, where are they? That was just a fun little thing I did. I don't think there's any promo card. I don't think we'll have any promo cards that have my art on them. I'm not an artist. at least in terms of visual art. Jay Vargas says, when is Scythe releasing on iOS? That's a great question for Asmodee Digital and the Knights of Unity, but I don't know. It's completely in their hands. Chad says, have I ever put masking tape square on the floor? It's hilarious. Cats will sit inside the square. I tried it with Biddy, and he didn't seem to really care. Usually he cares about that kind of thing. Like he'll sit on anything that you just randomly put, if I pull a shirt out of the laundry, he'll immediately sit on it. But he did not fall for the classic cat trap of tape on the floor. Bree is playing Slay the Spire right now. This was I did a game design video on Tuesday about Slay the Spire, which is a digital only game that feels like a tabletop game. Really, really cool game, very addictive. So much so that I had to delete it. I don't want to spend all my time playing Slay the Spire and not designing games. Rachel says, have I ever won Scythe without deploying any mechs? Have you ever completed 6 stars but did not win? I've definitely completed 6 stars but did not win. I don't think I've ever won Scythe without deploying any mechs, though. Those are some of the more difficult achievements in Scythe. Nick says that he's working at home, and working at home has got me wanting to upgrade my workstation. I know you have an Uplift desk. That's a brand called Uplift, and I've been looking at one. What size, surface, and add-ons did you get? I don't remember the Surface name. It's kind of I don't think it was like a special upgrade. It's just a nice kind of reddish brown wood. I got, what is this? I think this is the 60-inch or 72-inch. It's a big desk. It's essentially my wingspan of a desk, which is a good size for my office. Make sure you measure your office space, though, because it was bigger than I thought, and I know how to measure things. And the one thing that I would definitely recommend that you get is I can't show you on camera, but it's the controls that let you set how high the desk is. So you can say, okay, setting 1 is my seating position, setting 4 is my highest position, and you can just click 4 or 1 and the desk will automatically reset rather than you holding down the button. It seems like a small thing, but it is absolutely worth the upgraded expense to do that. Sarah says that she says, have you enjoyed your plays of Forgotten Waters so far? She says, we played it with our 10-year-old and it was hilarious. The writing is very clever and fun. I really did enjoy the game. I thought it was great. The one thing that I'll say about it, and I'll do a favorite mechanism video about it soon. The one thing I'll say is that it felt a little bit more like an activity than a game. There definitely are good, important, interesting choices that you make in the game in terms of like which actions that you're choosing. But the heart of the game is kind of the story that the game tells you, and you're kind of just going through this story and experiencing it as the game tells you that story, which is great, especially because the story is so well told. I didn't come out of it thinking, oh, we made a lot of clever decisions, we deserve to win or lose. I didn't feel that way, but I did feel like we had engaged in a really fun story, and it's one that I want to bring out with more people in the future. I'm glad you're having fun with it too. Rick says, with the Wingspan Oceania expansion coming up, you said due. I don't know if it's really due, where it's in process. Can the cards be added to the core game and the European expansion together, or just the core game only? Yeah, so the way that Stonemaier Games does expansions is that we don't want to ever to make someone feel like they are required to buy all expansions. So you can just buy the Oceania expansion and you can add it to the core game. Or you could just buy the European expansion, add it to the core game, or you can add both of them to the core game and play them in combination. You do always need the core game because expansions inherently expand the core game. They aren't standalone. Otherwise, they'd just be games. But you can, for any of our games, I'm trying to think of any, like we do have a viticulture expansion where you aren't supposed to shuffle the cards into the regular visitor cards. They replace them. You play with them or the original visitor cards. But for the most part, we try to make sure that all of our expansions are independent of each other and play well just if you buy that one expansion. So you can pick and choose the expansions that appeal the most to you. Eric says, does this quarantine have you considering developing some digital-only games? No, I mean, that's not my forte. If I was a programmer, maybe, but I'm not. John says, what excites you the most about the Tapestry expansion? Lots of things, but I can't talk about them yet. Or I won't talk about them yet. I can talk about whatever I want, but I own the company. But I'm not going to. I'll wait until later this year when we start talking about the Tapestry expansion. Ephraim says, what's the heaviest game that you love Probably Tzolk'in. Tzolk'in's probably the heaviest game that I love. Matt says, how much time as a percentage do you spend putting Easter eggs in games like Tapestry? It doesn't take actually a lot of time. Usually it's me just sending an email to the artist saying, hey, I love to have my cats in the games. I love to have the St. Louis Arch somewhere in the game. If you want to put some fun references to your games in there. It's usually just an email or two. It's not a lot of my time. It takes some of the artist's time to do it, but not a lot of time at all. So less than 1%. Tom, so Chad is talking about controversial games here. And Tom Vassell recently mentioned Cards Against Humanity. The example Chad says that here is pretty stark. He says that Cards Against Humanity makes fun of suicide. I'm not familiar with that exact card in Cards Against Humanity, but it does not seem above that game. It seems like Cards Against Humanity has gone with the approach of we'll make fun of everything, so everything is okay to make fun of. But I don't know if that's actually the case. I don't know if I really know the way about certain things that that aren't meant to be taken light of. So that's a great chat. I hadn't thought about that game, and I will definitely add it to my list of controversial games. And Steven mentioned, what's the game? Manchukuo. Lots of great questions today. Thank you all for joining me. Let me do a quick rehash in case you want to go, if you're tuning in now and you want to go rewatch certain topics. I talked about a counterfeit experience that I recently had with a company in Iran that tried to counterfeit one of our games. Is actually kind of actively currently trying to counterfeit one of our games. I talked about the My Little Side, the Pie in the Sky expansion. We'll be revealing the rulebook tomorrow, and how we've been playtesting on Tabletopia recently. And that Rolling Realms version 9 is ready. I'm just deciding when I'll do my teach and play of it. I also, recent plays include Forgotten Waters, Shards of Infinity, Slay the Spire, Lord of the Rings LCG, and The Witness. Videos about also include 5 Tribes, and talked about blog entries, including like one about Easter eggs in games, and an upcoming video about controversial subjects in games, which is why you're seeing some people post about controversial subjects. Ronak says, what strategy would you recommend for an Albion player inside? I'm never able to win with Albion. Albion can get a lot of points if they position their tokens in the right places at the end of the game and really try to kind of hunker down, and prevent people from controlling those territories. It's been a while since I played with Albion, but I definitely found a strategy that I really liked with them. What did I do with Albion that I liked? They have a way that you can jump to workers. So I kind of like sending, if I remember this correctly, it's been a while since I played Albion, but I think you can like send workers around the board and then use them to jump to those workers and even jump to the flags that you place down. So I like that Albion has a pretty broad range that they can use. And that seems to have worked well. I think it's a weird faction that you need to be kind of you need to decide either to be aggressive or defensive. And I prefer to turtle a little bit. So they're the faction that if you like to turtle, that's what they're good at. Brian says, did I give an Oceania update? And I said, yes, we're currently designing it, working on the design process. And have I tried Marvel Champions? I have, and I have a YouTube video on it if you want to check that out. Joseph says, what's my favorite Survivor? I don't want to spoil anything from this season. This season is about all Survivor winners. There are 20 past Survivor winners that are competing. And so the ones that are freshest on my mind are those that are currently alive in the game. But I don't want to spoil any of that. I would say Cochrane. Cochrane's probably my all-time favorite Survivor. I think Cochrane's awesome. Just scrolling down here. Rachel says, what's up next after Oceania for Wingspan? I can't tell you. And I can't tell you for a few reasons. Elizabeth and I have talked about it. I think we have a pretty good idea of what's next. I'm not going to reveal it next or right now. But it is possible that instead of moving forward with an expansion next, we might do a fun promo pack. In fact, I'm waiting for an email right now. I'm looking over at my other monitor for Elizabeth to let me know if she wants to focus next on a fun promo pack or the next expansion. So based on that, I actually don't know exactly. Daniel says, do I prefer teaching the original Scythe or My Little Scythe, including expansions more? My Little Scythe is a little bit easier to teach than Scythe, but both are pretty simple to get players just kind of up and running and taking a few turns. So I don't know if I really prefer one over the other. I'll say if it's a newer gamer, probably My Little Scythe, but if they're a more experienced gamer, Scythe. Jeffrey says, do I have any plans, updates on a possible plan to officially print and sell the Scythe Ultimate Rulebook that you shared last week? Yeah, kind of like what I said in that post. We're definitely moving forward with it. I was just gauging early demand for it. And yeah, we're ready to start printing it, just trying to decide the final first run print quantity of it. Stefano says that he has about 300 games and Tapestry is his favorite game. That's awesome, Stefano. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the expansion that we're working on that we will release later this year. A few people have been trying to get me to spoil it, but I'm not going to spoil anything about that yet. Sarah thanks me for my suggestion on the she says Rising Sun. Sarah, I think you meant Red Rising, right? The Red Rising book series that I really love. I've recommended many times here. Ephraim says, have I thought about organizing StoneCon or Stonemaier in the future, Stonemaier Con? We actually have one. It's not exactly as I think you're thinking of it, but we call it the Stonemaier Games Design Day, and it's focused on people who are playtesting their games, having playtesters offer them feedback for their games, and also playing published games and learning from them so we can become better designers together. It's an event you can find it on our website. It's sold out for this year. It's in September of every year. Magnus says, how important is the feel of the components? For me, it's very important. As you can tell in Tapestry, we use like a very special texture in the rulebook and on the player mats, different textures for each. So I love like the texture of the weight of components, the tactile nature of board games is one of the reasons I'm drawn to tabletop games. And so we put, at Stonemaier Games in particular, other companies too, but we put a lot of thought and effort into picking the right components and textures and materials for our games. Chad clarifies that it's not Cards Against Humanity. There's a game like Cards Against Humanity that makes fun of suicide. Okay, that's good to know. I don't entirely know that Cards Against Humanity doesn't do that, but I'll check on that first before referencing it. Okay, Jack says the game was Pug U. There's a game called Pug U that does that. Thank you, Cody, for finding my Marvel Champions video. Joseph mentions this game, the Fujikoro is an Italian game trying to save the temples from a volcano eruption versus the monks. Interesting. John says, do I personally sleeve any of my games? Do I design boxes based on people who do? Yeah, not the boxes, but the trays and the inserts in games. We definitely always make sure, if we're designing a specific tray, that they can fit cards with sleeves. Some of you might be watching that and wondering, are you actually telling the truth about that? Because my cards don't fit into Wingspan. And specifically, we make sure the cards, like the length and the width of the cards can fit. Card sleeves can make depending on the sleeve, they can make a big difference in terms of the height of the cards. Once you, like a normal stack of cards might be this tall, but with sleeves, it could be this tall, or sleeves, it could even be that tall. And so it really depends on the types of sleeves people use. But usually you can kind of compress it down. It's like in the Wingspan tray. You can, if they're with the right sleeve, you can just push it down and close the tray on the cards. So we do design around that. I don't sleeve my games though. Yeah, I don't sleeve my games. Joseph says, by fun promo expansion for Wingspan, do I mean the ones where you draw the art on the cards? No, Joseph, I don't think you're going to get any expansions where I draw the art. We have very talented artists who will take care of that. Sean says, well, I have a bundle for the My Little Scythe and the expansion. Yes, I don't even know exactly what it is yet, so I don't want to promise anything yet, but I will definitely offer My Little Scythe at a discount for those who don't have it and want to get it with the Pie in the Sky expansion in a few weeks on April 29th when that pre-order begins. Ernani says, I just noticed the sale on Stonemaier Games website. For how long will it go? Yeah, I put some items on sale a week or so ago, and you can even get certain things for sale at special discounts if you add them to your cart after if you put something in your cart, we'll have something pop up that says like, hey, if you add this to your cart too, you might get a special discount. So I don't know, Renati. It's something that I kind of did on a whim last week. I figured people might be able to people might appreciate a little bit of cost savings right now, and it'll last as long as I want it to, really. Danielle says, if you could have an expansion made of any other publisher's game that you currently enjoy but doesn't have an expansion, what game would you choose? Ooh, that's a fun question. What are some of the games I love? So some of the games that I really love already have expansions to them. Looking at Clank, Downforce, Tzolk'in, great expansions for all of them. What's my current top 10 list? Let me see. There's a top 10 list that doesn't have an expansion. I know Clank was on there. I'm pretty sure Downforce was on there. Okay, my top 10 favorite games right now, or as of March. Quacks of Quedlinburg has an expansion. Dice Throne has an expansion. Role Player has an expansion. Fantasy Realms has some promos but no expansion. So Fantasy Realms, Casa Time Story and Magic, Clank. Yeah, they all these games have expansions except for Fantasy Realms. So I'll say Fantasy Realms. Ephraim says, why did I name Scythe Scythe? And it's because the scythe is an instrument that can be used both for farming and war, and I thought that was a good reflection of the world and the art that Jakob was building. Kevin says, is the magnifying glass supposed to invert everything? No, it should not work that way. You have to put it pretty close to what you're looking at. So if you hold it far away, you have to hold the thing. I was like, oh, is this actually inverting? But no, I was holding the candy bar upside down. So you have to put it close up. You could have a lens that has a mistake, but with my lens, definitely it's showing me everything face up. You're looking at it through both sides. So inversion would be a weird glitch. Sarah mentions Marcos is a little controversial. I'll look into Narcos. Daniel says, my friends and I have recently been playing Keyflower, and I love the bidding element of using specific colored meeples to go for certain hexes in the game. Do I have any plans for game design with a similar bidding element? As a mini game in a game, yes, but as the core mechanism, no. I think it is a cool mechanism, though. And I also recommend the Speckerstadt. Speckerstadt is an out-of-print game, but it's a fantastic game that uses meeples in a way that's kind of like that, too. All right, it looks like we've reached the hour point. You've asked some wonderful questions today and offered some wonderful insights into games. So thank you so much for joining me. I will go ahead and post this on YouTube. That's the best place to post further comments if you want to continue this conversation. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. And I hope you're staying self-isolated in this time where we really need it. And I will see you next Wednesday. Take care.